Welcome to Malifaux University. 632, Special Terrain Rule, Bah Humrug. Not to be confused with Bah Humbug, which is Ebenezer Scrooge's exclamation of choice in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, or with the special strategy of the same name. Bah Humrug is a special terrain rule Weird released in 2021 to go along with the terrain piece of Waldo lounging on a bearskin rug. If you don't have this fun piece, you should look around and scoop one up. Or two, or five. The complete text of the rules is presented in the notes of this video for your reference. Before the game, you need the Waldo Bah Humrug terrain piece. It goes on a 50mm base and is pre-assembled, but of course you'll want to paint it before you put it on the table. In a pinch, any 50mm base will do, especially since you may want to use more than one. For real fun, see how many Waldo models you can get. The Bah Humbug Waldo, where he's stuck in a chimney, and Grumpus Waldo will make your playing table more festive. In any case, since this is a completely optional rule, you can play with as many Bah Humrugs as you want, though one per table quarter is probably as many as you should have. Bah Humrugs are Height 1, Concealing, and Impassable terrain pieces, but do not count as markers. Impassable means models cannot move through them unless the model has the incorporeal ability, flight, or something similar. You also cannot overlap the base of a model or other marker with these impassable terrain pieces. Concealing means that if any sight lines to a targeted model pass through the Bah Humrug, the targeted model has concealment, which imposes a negative modifier on all non-melee attack actions against that model. Shockwaves ignore concealment though. Even though the Bah Humrugs are Height 1, larger models do not get to ignore them when drawing line of sight, since line of sight is drawn top-down. The height will only come into play if some other game effect affects the terrain piece and refers to its height. Since they do not count as markers, they cannot be the target of the Slam general action. Bah Humrugs come with a pair of optional rules that go together, and a third optional rule to play with if you're feeling particularly festive. Discuss this with your opponent to see how you want to play. This can be a fun way for beginning players to add a little flavor to an encounter using the core rules, or for experienced players to put a spin on the gaining grounds encounters that might be getting predictable. But whether you play the 2-rule version or the 3-rule version, make sure you agree beforehand when you're setting up the table. The first of the 2 rules is that, once per activation, a model within 2 inches and line of sight of a Bah Humrug that completes an action during its own activation may heal 1. Normally, once per activation applies to any model's activation, but this wording clearly rules out any model gaining this heal effect during another model's activation or when under control of an obey type action. But if you're near a Bah Humrug when you complete an action, you can heal 1, and that's nice. The second rule that goes with the first takes place in the end phase. After both players score their victory points, if one of them has fewer victory points than the other, the player who is behind can place any Bah Humrug pieces on the playing area, anywhere else on the playing area, as long as they're at least 2 inches away from other impassable terrain, which still allows for a model on a 50mm base to pass through. You can't make a wall out of these things. The third optional rule, if you choose to use it, is called 'Tis the Season to Be Tipsy, and takes place at the beginning of the crew leader's activations, not necessarily any master's or henchman's activation, but the leader of each crew. When a crew leader activates, it may remove 1 or 2 friendly scheme markers that are within 2 inches and line of sight of any single Bah Humrug. If it does so, it then draws an equal number of cards, 1 or 2. Then, all models within 2 inches and line of sight of that Bah Humrug gain the Poison +1 condition if 1 scheme marker was removed, and Poison +2 if 2 were removed. Note that while the scheme markers and models must be within 2 inches and line of sight of the Bah Humrug, the leader doing this does not need to be. The leader can be anywhere on the table and choose any Bah Humrug anywhere on the table. Also note that while this effect removes only friendly scheme markers, The poison condition is given to all models within 2 inches and line of sight of the Bah Humrug, friendly and enemy alike. Let's see this in action. Rasputina's December crew, naturally, is facing off against Bo Peep's Bayou crew. Both players agreed before the game to put 4 Bah Humrugs on the table with all 3 rules in effect. Each player sets out 2 Bah Humrugs, keeping them at least 2 inches away from other impassable terrain on the table. They both play their games according to the strategy and schemes they've chosen. Some models take advantage of the heal effect, such as this Silent One, who caught a bullet from Fluffernutter's broken down rifle. When the Silent One hits the Slop Hauler with an ice blast, she heals one after completing the action. There are no victory points in the first turn, and at the end of the second turn, both crews have 1 victory point, so they don't get to move the Bah Humrugs then. By the end of the third turn, however, the December crew has pulled ahead, with 3 victory points to the Bayou crew's 2. The Bayou player now gets to reposition all 4 Bah Humrugs. He puts them here, 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 and here, keeping them at least 2 inches away from other impassable terrain, which includes the Bah Humrugs themselves. Going into turn 4, this Bah Humrug is now conveniently close to 2 Bayou scheme markers and 2 Horcats. The Bayou player decides he can live without the scheme markers and activates Bo Peep, his crew leader, right away. He removes both scheme markers from around the Bah Humrug and draws 2 cards. This puts him over his maximum hand size, so he discards a couple of weak cards to get back down to 6. Both Horcats now gain poison +2 since Bo Peep removed 2 scheme markers. Unless it's removed somehow, they will both suffer 1 damage in the end phase from the condition. Let us know in the comments below how your game with Bah Humrugs turns out. That's the special terrain rules, Bah Humrug. Pick up a printable set of all the markers and tokens you need to play Malifaux in the Wargame Vault. If you haven't already, join our Patreon for early, ad-free access to all new content, and be sure to visit the Malifaux University gift shop for the latest in Malifaux-themed shirts, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Links are in the notes below. And remember, play friendly games, keep it simple, and have fun.